So I was finally able to read Amazing Spider-Man number 700, which is the final issue of the series, and I gotta say, I was pretty disappointed in this. For those of you who have not read this yet and intend on reading it and want to avoid spoilers, stop this video right now because I'm going to be talking about just about everything, but there's just a lot of stuff that really doesn't sit right with me in this. The story itself is okay. I don't like the ending, but the premise of the story I can deal with. Peter Parker is trapped in the dying body of Doc Ock after they switched bodies, and Doc Ock is in Peter's body and he has all of his memories, so he's able to seamlessly integrate himself into Peter's life and nobody can really notice because he has all the knowledge that Peter Parker has and all the memories. He can really easily interact with everybody Peter knows, from like Aunt May to all of the Avengers, and nobody can tell the difference. So it's a very difficult situation for Peter, who is in this withered body, and he has to reach out to some other supervillains kind of telepathically. I'm not sure when exactly Doc Ock got that power, but he's able to like telepathically communicate with some technology to reach out to some supervillains who break him out, and he formulates this plan to try to get his body back. So over the course of the issue, there's one point when the villains are working on the life support system, I believe, and Peter gets electrocuted and he goes under for a few minutes, and he either has a vision or goes to heaven, and he sees several people from his past who have died, and he has this conversation with Uncle Ben, which I would say was the highlight of the issue, and Uncle Ben basically tells him that in his mind, Peter doesn't have to really balance any scales. He doesn't have to keep trying to live his life as Spider-Man to make up for the mistake he made that resulted in Uncle Ben's death. And I thought this was a great moment because basically the entire series has been based on this guilt that Peter has about what happened to Uncle Ben. So for in this final issue to have Uncle Ben really just say that he forgave Peter and say, hey, it's okay, you don't have to live the rest of your life feeling horrible about what happened. You've done enough. It just felt like Peter had finally gotten the reward he deserved for everything that he's been through. But Uncle Ben also says that you have to do this one last thing. You can't leave Doc Ock in your body because that man is too dangerous to have the powers of Spider-Man, and you've got to go back and protect the people you care about. So Peter does manage to get back, and he makes his way to New York, and I think he's in Avengers Tower when this big conflict happens, and I'm skipping a lot of stuff. In the end, he is able to get Doc Ock's little Ock bot, the one that transferred Ock's mind into his brain, and he does that, and he almost gets Doc Ock, but Doc Ock kind of thought ahead with this and like put some metal plating on the back of his head so it blocks the Ock bot. So Peter is trapped in Doc Ock's dying body, and Ock's like all proud of himself. He feels like he's victorious, and Peter has this mental connection with Doc Ock, and he is able to make him feel all of the emotions that he's had throughout his life as he's dealt with these tragedies, and Doc Ock really gets this sense of what it is like to be Spider-Man and have this responsibility, and he has this new respect and appreciation for what Peter Parker has done, and he finally kind of understands the lesson, with great power comes great responsibility. So Peter is dying, and he basically passes along the responsibility to Doc Ock after he realizes that, hey, Doc Ock, now that he understands this, will be able to be Spider-Man. So the Superior Spider-Man, the new series that comes out, is Doc Ock in the body of Peter Parker. So, let's just get into this. There are two things. You've got the death of Peter Parker in this story, and you've got the introduction of Doc Ock as the successor. First, I'm going to talk about the handling of the death of Peter Parker. There are several things about that didn't sit right with me. First, there is this concept that Doc Ock is a better Spider-Man than Peter is. Like, it's subtle in this issue. I mean, with the Superior Spider-Man title, they heavily imply that. But there's this moment where they're falling, and Doc Ock, like, puts this web cushion out, and Peter's like, oh, this falling at this height, if we hit that, it's not going to really do anything because just the force of the impact is too great for the web cushion to do anything. But Doc Ock makes it like a, I don't know, he makes like a better web cushion, like kind of an inflatable thing. So it's a better web cushion that Peter has thought of. And Peter's been Spider-Man for years, and he's like, why didn't I ever think of that? So it's like, within the span of a few like 24 hours, I think it's been, Doc Ock is using his webs better than Peter ever did. So it's like, you're insulting Peter that way. Then when you've got Peter in this vision and he talks to Uncle Ben, Uncle Ben's like, you have to do this one thing. You can rest after this. You don't have to be Spider-Man anymore, but you have to get your body back. And Peter fails in that mission. You could argue that the larger mission was to protect his loved ones, and he does that by making Doc Ock understand the responsibility of being Spider-Man and how to be a good person, and motivates him to want to live up to that. But Peter essentially does fail in the last thing he does, which is, I don't like that as the end of this character's story. And no one knows that Peter died, so he doesn't get a proper send-off. You don't have his loved ones really mourning for him. Doc Ock is the only person who knows that. So it just feels like a very poor way to send off this character who has been through so much. But Doc Ock as the successor, I think, has its own problems as well. The transition to him being a good guy was too quick. It all happens in this issue, and most of it just in the last page or two. Like, there is this moment within the issue, probably near the middle, where Doc Ock punches the Scorpion. Well, not Doc Ock, but in Spider-Man's body, he punches the Scorpion and he like knocks his jaw off or something. And he's like, I never realized that Spider-Man had all this power. He must have been holding back all this time. So I guess at that moment, he realized a little bit that Peter was doing something pretty good. Like, all those times when he was knocking Doc Ock out, he wasn't brutalizing him the way he could have. But then in the end, it's just that moment where they have that mental connection, and he sees all this stuff and he feels all this stuff, and it's like, hey, all of a sudden, drop of a hat, Doc Ock is now a good guy. And the transition didn't really work to me. Like, if they built that up over like several issues, then maybe the transition would have worked well, but it just didn't feel right to me. And then to have Doc Ock as the successor, just the character himself, I don't feel seems right. Like, his conflict with Spider-Man was never quite personal enough to me. Like, I think Norman Osborn is definitely Spider-Man's arch nemesis, and you've got this great personal conflict there. And I wouldn't say that Norman Osborn should be the new Spider-Man, but somebody like Eddie Brock, who's had this conflict with Peter Parker directly, he hates Peter's guts. That would make a little bit more sense to me than Doc Ock, who just doesn't like Spider-Man because Spider-Man gets in the way. It's never been this, like, terrible animosity between Peter Parker and Otto Octavius, and it's not like Octavius has really done that much that Peter would hate him a lot too. So if you had this very strong hatred between the two characters, and then you found this understanding in this last issue, that would have been very good to me. But the conflict between the two characters, yes, it's been running a long time, and Doc Ock is one of Spider-Man's greatest villains, but I still don't think it was personal enough for this transition to be very meaningful. And then, like I said before a little bit with the handling of Peter Parker's death, the whole superior Spider-Man thing just feels like an insult to Peter. Like, right after Doc Ock finds this newfound appreciation for Peter Parker, he's like, oh yeah, well, I will be a better Spider-Man than you ever were after Peter's dead. And it's like, what? You're going to honor him by saying that I'm going to top you and be better than you? It just doesn't feel right to me. I mean, you got this whole fan base who loves this character of Peter Parker, and then it's just kind of a slap to the face of the character of Peter. It's like, yeah, this guy's better than Peter. Like, usually when you have a character take over the mantle of a superhero like Dick Grayson becoming Batman or Bucky becoming Captain America. It's like, I'm going to do my best to live up to the standard you set and be as good as you are. This is just like, it shows a disrespect to say, I'm going to be better than you. So that just, the Superior Spider-Man as a whole, it's got that weighing on it. It's like the series in its existence and its name is an insult to this character that everyone loves. And can you really transition a character like that after 50 years? I mean, Spider-Man is one of the biggest superheroes out there. Arguably, the big three are Superman, Batman, and Spider-Man. And a character who is that iconic and people know as Peter Parker and who has been around for so long, can you really ever transition to another person taking over that role? And Dan Slott, the writer, was like, oh, well, people said the same thing when Wally West became the Flash or when Barry Allen became the Flash. But Jay Garrick, the original Flash, was the Flash for like 16 years, I think. Nobody has ever really transitioned permanently after a 50-year run. So that's why people such as myself are very skeptical that this is going to last, because when you've got a character who people really associate with that closely as being that superhero, I don't think you can ever really transition there. Like, even when Dick Grayson took over as Batman, you go to the Wikipedia page and it's like Bruce Wayne as Batman. You can't transition that. So I'm skeptical there. And then just comparing this to the death of Ultimate Spider-Man, I feel like that was handled much better. Like, Peter Parker was victorious, he went out as a hero. In the aftermath, you get to see that he got the respect that he never got in life. So I liked that a lot more. I think it was a lot more emotional. It felt like the character got the payoff that he deserved. So both of them have that element of, I don't want to see this character die, but the handling of the death itself was better in Ultimate Spider-Man, and the handling of the successor was better in Ultimate Spider-Man because they didn't try to do both at once. And Miles Morales as a character, he's eager to live up to Peter Parker's standard. So while Doc Ock is inspired by Peter sort of the way that Miles was inspired by Peter's example, Miles has more humility, so it seems more respectful, and it's easier to transition to this character who has the same respect for the character that the fans do. But with Doc Ock, it just doesn't work the same way to me. So I'm hoping that maybe we'll be able to get Ultimate Spider-Man back pretty soon, and maybe Miles will be Scarlet Spider or something, because to have both the regular Marvel Universe and the Ultimate Universe without Peter Parker just feels wrong to me. So, Superior Spider-Man, I'm probably going to read the first issue, but Doc Ock doesn't really have me interested in... I'm not interested in following this reformed Doc Ock as a superhero. And I'm already reading Venom, which is a good series. I would have probably accepted seeing Flash Thompson take over the role as Spider-Man, since he's had this long connection to Peter Parker. He idolizes Spider-Man. It would have made a lot of sense, I think, to see that kind of transition, even though he is Venom, so it'd be kind of strange, and you'd have to think of a story arc to make that make sense, but as a character, I would have been comfortable with him taking up the mantle. And then Scarlet Spider, Kane, I think, also maybe could have been an acceptable replacement, but Doc Ock I'm not really feeling. So very skeptical at this point, very disappointed, but hopefully they will undo this. I mean, they killed off Johnny Storm, made this big point about that being the finale of the Fantastic Four, and then like less than a year later he was back and the Fantastic Four was running again. So who knows, we'll see. But that's really all I've got for this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, subscribe, and tune in next time.